In this episode, we're following the journey of one first home buyer who has conquered the mountain and managed to enter the incredibly competitive Sydney property market. Oh my God, we're here to hear about the lessons they learned, whether his assumptions were right or wrong, and mistakes he made, those that were avoided, and ultimately how he sealed the deal.
Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to get it right.
I'm Megan and that was Veronica. We're both buyer's agents and probably old enough to be your mums. But that's a good thing because between us, we've got over 40 years experience and we are going to share with you bucket loads of stories about avoidable mistakes. Together, we're going to make sure that you get unbiased and real information that you can rely on so you can get where you want to be without missing a step.
Now, we've got loads of great tips for you in this episode, and if you'd like more useful tools, head over to the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. There you'll find free checklists that you can download, a free mini course on how to price a property, and our Where to Buy workshop for only $39. Priceless stuff, really.
Bargain. But before we get into the interesting stuff in this week's episode, here's the boring bit, the disclaimer. You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field of expertise. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change. So check with the relevant government authority or your advisors to get the most up-to-date information.
Anthony is a Home Buyer Academy graduate, and we're so excited that you've joined us today and that we are going to share your story. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Welcome. Let's start at the beginning. Where were you up to in your property journey when we first met you?
So I'd actually gone to the bank just for just to get information on how much I could borrow, and then I actually ended up there was a poster sort of at work that had information for a broker, and that sort of got me into it. I found out about the podcast, and then pretty much from the start, really, hadn't really done any sort of research or anything. Had a feeling, probably should think about buying property soon. I've been saving my deposit, but really knew nothing about it at all.
That's really interesting because so many people come to us after having actually spent quite a lot of time out looking, trying to make head or tail of what's going on. And of course, Anthony, because you're Sydney based, and of course I'm Sydney based, we've had some communication along the way. I actually did not realise that we've actually been in your life effectively in your property journey almost from the beginning via the podcast anyway. So that's very exciting.
Really proud.
Yeah, so do I. I can't tell you, actually, when I got your email saying, I bought, I'm like, oh, my God. I know that it's been difficult for you and a real challenge because I've been part of that. Anthony and I have been communicating throughout that journey. So it's extremely exciting, but I actually didn't know that. So tell us, okay, that's great. So you got on the podcast. So when you said the podcast, you're talking about the elephant in the room before this one, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, so you got into the elephant in the room. So that sort of starts you on the eye-opening journey of property. How long where were you up to in terms of saving your deposit? Were you ready to buy at that point, or did you have a bit to go?
So I'm pretty sort of like a hardcore saver. So I pretty much had like my deposit saved by the time, and I did have enough based on like how much I wanted to spend, and obviously because it's been a few months since I bought, COVID sort of helped build that up even further. But I was pretty much, apart from having like a pre-approval, finance wise, ready to go.
That's great. And
how did you know
what you bought? Was that what you imagined that you'd buy?
Not really. So originally I started off thinking, I want to get a house, and then I had a look at the sold tab on Domain. And I was like, yep, that's not happening. So I think back, I was speaking with Veronica probably I think it would have been about February, March this year. and I was looking at probably a bigger apartment. And because it's been so long, the market's sort of gotten away from me, and I have sort of downgraded and down-specced what I was going to get originally. But like I never really had like a really clear, sort of like what I wanted to get. But I guess it's sort of like I had a look. I knew kind of what area I wanted, and it sort of molded around that with what was available.
Mm. And how did you, because, you said that you'd saved a deposit for the amount that you wanted to spend. How did you arrive at that figure? Was it you sort of thought, because it sounds like you just decided the amount of money that you wanted to spend versus what you needed to buy a property. Would that be fair? That's the order in which you did that?
It was probably based on like my max borrowing. So I guess like I'd pretty much be using my entire savings for my deposit, put it that way. Like I wouldn't really have any leftover cash. So yeah, in that essence, like my deposit was pretty much my max. So and that was like around the 1 mil mark was what I was interested in spending at the time.
Which is such a lot of money, isn't it?
Huge amount for your first time.
When you think about it.
Well done. That must have been a really interesting journey to save enough to actually get to that point. What is there anything that you did differently I'm off script here, but I'm really interested. Is there anything you did differently than maybe someone else that you would be in a friendship circle with or a work circle with that got you to that point? Of being able to save that much money? Because it's hard. It's hard to pull that deposit together.
Well, I've been, I went to uni, and by second year uni, I was working. So that's, I'm 25 now, and I would have started working around 19. So, and keeping in mind, probably by about 21, 22, that's full-time work. So I have been working, I've been saving. I'm living at home, so that obviously helps a lot. But just with spending in general, I'm not I don't buy like heaps of flashy stuff. I'm more of a saver.
So you've actually never got in the habit of spending money?
Because
you've started young.
Well, like I'll spend on nice things.
Disciplined, isn't it? It's really disciplined.
I am, not like sort of, to my own horn or anything, but I'm like pretty disciplined, like when it comes to like saving money.
I always joke that my older brother, still has the first paycheck he ever earned as a delivering milk. I, on the other hand, spent before I earned the money. So there's different. Congratulations to you. That's such an awesome effort to get to be so disciplined around that. Really interested. So initially you thought you might have a house, but it changed along the way and you moved towards an apartment. What was some of the things that you went through? What were some of the experiences that you had that helped you change and led you to the decision to buy an apartment?
Well, I mean, really, it was just the fact that I wouldn't be able to get a good quality house. Like, I was at that point where, like, I was looking at houses, but they were either on main roads, they needed a full-on renovation or a knockdown. It wouldn't be worth it, and it wouldn't be a good sort of starting point. And I'd spoken to my dad as well, and we'd thought about going to another broker to see if I could stretch myself even further. And that sort of came up for a bit, but just from a risk perspective, didn't go for that.
So one of the things, step one in the pay system, as you well know, is actually getting your support crew. And so you've already mentioned that you went to a bank and then you got the broker and then you were talking to your dad. Beyond that, who were your other advisors?
So it's really like, I mean, I did the course and like the broker has sort of been like along the journey along the way. I have like an accountant that does my tax yearly, but nothing more than that. And then obviously got like a conveyancer on board as well. That's really about it. Yeah.
Because you moved from dealing directly with the bank to dealing with the broker. I guess what did you feel that you got a different level of advice, or you got different ideas because you used a broker rather than dealing directly with the bank?
Oh yeah, it's completely different. Like, I went to the bank because like my friend bought a property and he sort of said, go to this guy, help me out. And I guess like the main thing you were sort of pushing is the is I think it was the grant with how much, I think it was that the first home buyer grant where you got to spend 600 grand or whatever it is. So it was sort of just revolving around that. It was sort of pushing that, you can find this, but it didn't really go any further than that.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting. And do you think that's because that person really didn't know anything beyond that, just assumed that first home buyers must all want to get grants? Or do you think that there was, I don't know, I mean, is that what half all the other customers were doing? I mean, where do you think that sort of impetus came from?
I think possibly he sort of, thought first home buyer, low budget, grant, that'll help, and, put that all together and think, yep, that's sort of what you want to be looking to spend.
So it's well-meaning.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. If there's money to be had for nothing, then often people assume that that's what people want. But it was actually the exploration of what you wanted that led you to say, actually, no, I don't want to be limited by budget. I don't want to be limited by age of property. I don't want to be limited by whatever the constraints were around the grant. I actually want the best asset that I can possibly get for the money that I'm comfortable to spend on the asset. And I absolutely applaud you for going down that pathway of not being taken in by some free money and someone who perhaps, was trying to encourage you down that path of, well, if you stick to this, you'll get that. Because the asset at the end of the day, Veronica, that's the most important thing, is that you're buying something that's really good quality and it's right for where you are and what your life, your stage in your life cycle is, but also, not being limited to something that might constrain you and limit you in the future.
So we'll get to what you bought in due course, but I know that you had a couple of misses. You got yourself ready, you geared up, you went to auction even and didn't buy the property. So do you want to tell us a bit about that process? Because I would imagine that's pretty demoralising, and you may have well have felt like giving up many times and you didn't, and you kept going. So share a bit of that with us.
So I think it was probably I think February or March this year. There was a property in Marrickville that I thought, yeah, this looks great, really nice. Like, I'd run it past you, Veronica, and you sort of recommend, you said, it's a good property. And I remember, I think the most recent sale in the block was, around 900 or something like that, or 950. And I remember thinking, yep, I'm going to come in around, 105, and then, online auction, we're there, I'm ready, contract reviewed. Yep, I've got a good feeling about this. I might go to 1.1, just to really push myself. And just, I think it ended up going for like 115. And I just saw the bids just kept going back and forth, like, for like a good 10 minutes. And I was thinking, geez, I really underestimated that one. But that was kind of like, it was, I think it was a bit disappointing, like demoralizing, because the property a year ago, almost identical, went for, 20% less. And then also later on, I think in about August this year, another one went, and that went for another 50 grand on top of that. So it's like thinking, wow, if I'd, looked into property, if I've started doing all this maybe a year before, I'd be so much better off. But I mean, what do you do about that, right?
Can't turn back time.
Well, and that's a challenge too, isn't it? Because, of course, that feeds the FOMO. And some people just give up. Some people just go, that's it, I've missed my chance, it's all beyond me, this is not for me. And other people then go stupid and just throw everything at the next one. And then some people just, yes, exactly, it is quite painful. The other thing too, I know that at that time, so we, with the course, there's, we've got our social wall. And in fact, back then you and I were emailing each other rather than actually using the membership. But, you were coming to me and you were saying, right, well, what about this property as comparables? And I could see, you'd learnt very well. You're a very good student. You'd really taken on board the things that we would teach you in the course and the way to look at things and the way to actually, assess recent sales, because of course it's unusual that you got something that sold very recently that is very comparable. So you got to interpret a bit, right? And then, of course, you know, you got back on the saddle, right? Back in the saddle, and you went out again. Now, what led you to actually, well, I guess what I would say, did you have any aha moments along the way? Did you sort of go, you know, some real revelations that sort of helped you and sped you up into little spurts?
Not really. Like aha moments in regards to like when you say the course.
The process of buying. Were you doing something a certain way and then you went, oh, actually, I need to change the way that I'm doing this or the way that I'm thinking about it?
In regards to my property search, not really. I think the big thing that I did learn along the way is just that in a hot market, you've got to be super fast. Like you can't afford to wait for anyone. And that's on one of the properties in, I think it was August, another one that I went to go for. You know, I was getting my contract reviewed, and by the time I got the contract reviewed, the agent had come back and said it's already sold. And I was like, well, there's a waste of money. And it just, you know, it's like that was a lesson learned as well.
So that agent actually sold it. Did they give you any warning?
He told me he had someone looking at it. And I told him I was waiting for my contract to be reviewed, but by the time I'd had that done, he said, I've already sold it. So it didn't come back to a final, I'm about to sell it, but yeah.
Because it's so important to manage your risk by making sure that you have all of that due diligence done as effectively as you can do in the time constraints. But, you know, some people are taking risks in this particular market. We're in November 2021, and some people are taking extraordinary risks that, you know, Veronica and I fear will come back to bite them, you know, sometime into the near to near distant future. So I think whilst you missed out on that, Anthony, it was probably a very wise thing to make sure that you did do your due diligence properly. And what did you end up buying? Talk us through. So you've gone through the process, you've done the course, you've had a couple of mishits where things have gone over and above you. What led you to the one that you actually ended up buying, and what was that process like for you?
So it was all really fast. Purely because, like, from me missing out, it's sort of like, you know, flip the switch. Yep, you've got to like put everything aside, put work aside, and just focus on this. So I'd actually gone and I just went and had a look at a property in Dulwich Hill just to see it. Wasn't really interested, but I thought I'd go there. And I just sort of chatting with the agent. And then maybe like 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a text message on a Friday night saying, you know, property, you know, interested in seeing it. And I thought, it doesn't look like it's right, but I'll go have a look. I thought it was at the back of the block. So I went there the following Saturday. The agent actually waited for me. She just to keep it open, so lucky for that. And then, you know, had a look at it. I'm like, yep, this looks good. So straight away, you know, got the contract and the strata report, sent it to my conveyancer. I said, I need this, you know, Monday. Ran it past my broker, and then placed an offer Tuesday night, and the contract was signed Wednesday morning.
So this is private treaty, not an auction?
Yeah, so they were actually going to put it on the market on that Wednesday, and the agent said that the vendor was saying if they can get a good offer, they won't take it to market. So I got in just before, and they already said they did have a buyer's agent and a few other couples looking at it that went through on the Saturday. So but the agent said, you know, if you put your offer in, if we're happy with it, we're not going to go shopping around. So I think
that's nice when that happens.
That's an anomaly, but congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know that, you know, there's a number of little gems in there. One is just being nice to agents, not looking at them as the enemy, you know, and then they will actually give you information that may or may not be worthwhile. And you were prepared to go and have a look at it, even though on paper it didn't necessarily look right. And then when you got there, but also, I mean, you'd obviously rejected a whole bunch of others. You know, I know you've been looking for some time, so it wasn't like you just were desperate enough to buy anything. What was it about this one that made you think, oh, this is good, I should go for this? So
the property that I bought is maybe a suburb over from where I wanted to buy, but that comes into like the compromise with the rising market. But so I went there. As soon as I got there, you know, it's opposite this nice little reserve. I thought that's pretty good. top floor, at the front of the complex. Walk in, and proportionally, it's really good. Like the bedrooms are a good size, the layout's really nice, but it's got really good natural light. The windows are huge, and it's overlooking this park. So that's pretty much the main things I was looking for, and I had been looking for 8 months, and there'd been so much on the market that just didn't meet that. So as soon as I saw something like that, I thought, yeah, got to jump on it.
I have to say that my heart does go in my throat sometimes. I get the email, we bought, and I'm like, oh goody. Let's hope all the lessons that they've learned. Yeah. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, wow, he's really learned. This is so good. And a couple of things I'll add to that, because I noticed the outlook, and here you are, it's right on sort of 10 Ks outside of the CBD. So it's right on that edge. So it's not often that you get a leafy outlook and to look over a park in an apartment, right? It's an older style, so it's a red brick 3-story walk up, and those ones that have been well maintained are nice, good little solid blocks. Top floor means you get good natural light, and you do usually get a better outlook, and also there's more privacy, right? You do have to climb up a few more sets of stairs, but hey, it's good for your bum. And also, but the layout, there's the balcony wraps around. So this has actually got windows on 2 sides. So you're not one of those tunnel units with only, windows on the one end or 2.
3 sides.
3 sides even better. 3 sides, right? So there is light coming and breezes as well. But also your bedrooms are separated by a bathroom, aren't they? Which is so much better for sharing.
So much. Yeah.
And you can add value.
It's almost like you're recreating the recommendations in the course, Anthony, just in that one property.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. It's like a 5-minute walk to the station as well. But it's like I went into the street, when I got there, I'm like, wow, this is quiet here for inner west. It was surprising.
So do you think that you're more attuned to those sorts of things? So you had your criteria, which was quite solid, but do you think you were more attuned to those finer details because you'd actually had your eyes open to them? Do you not like how far it is to the cafe and the train and the natural light and the wraparound veranda, the value of those things, as opposed to, the tunnel apartment that just has the single small, in terms of pricing, did it help you to have had your eyes open to where value sits in those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at prices every week. I'll just be watching, what's new, what's being sold for what. And yeah, obviously the courses help with what to look for. It really it's now that I know, it's logic. And even walking through the property, you can tell straight away, wow, there's a lot of it feels really open.
Yeah.
A lot of it is kind of subjective in that way, even though it's objective. So yeah, it's definitely helped, and a lot of things I wouldn't have known really what to look for.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff, it's funny. We've studied it for so many years, and we've been in the market for so many years that we know what attracts buyers, but often buyers couldn't sort of sit down and note all those things down, and when you are aware of the actual things that make one property scarce versus another, or more unique than another, then when you can identify those and then act quickly, because that's the really important thing here too, that you've learnt, to go ding, this is good, this is worthwhile jumping on. Now you're not going to live in it straight up, are you? So what's the long-term plan for you? So
yeah, the plan is, so I've actually, because I can't actually afford to live in it, so I've bought it as an investment loan, because originally I was going to have a home loan, but I thought I really can't buy anything with this amount of money, so I've stretched myself there. The plan is just to rent it out for a year or two, then renovate the bathroom and the kitchen and the pantry, and then move in. Fingers crossed I can hold on to it when I buy the next one, keep it as an investment property. That's how many years down the track.
Oh, Anthony, you are our super saver. I think I think once you set your mind to it, there will be outcomes aplenty. That's awesome. So how long did the entire process take from the moment you said, I'm going to do this, to when you actually purchased the property? How long was that journey for you?
The moment is in like looking like to inspect the property.
And when you went to the bank, I think.
I think I went to the bank probably November last year.
Okay, so
long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
so the whole thing took 12 months.
Yeah, and what a 12 months it's been as well.
Hasn't it? For a whole variety of reasons that has nothing to do with your individual journey, but the world the intervention of the world on.
Yeah, crazy world that we live in. Now, Anthony, you were telling me off air a bit about what your dad thinks about this. Do tell. Can you share?
Yeah, so I think it's been hard as well, just because obviously I'm living with my parents, and Dad's trying to help. Like, he's interested in it, which is fair enough. It's for my own good. But like, they've been sort of saying, oh, you sure you don't want to buy new off the plan? This is really nice. Or like, you've got to buy a house. There's no growth in apartments. And I'm just thinking, and then, why do you want to live so far away from me? And all this sort of stuff. So and that's sort of made me really like second guess myself. But that's sort of where I've really relied on the content and the course, just to sort of be like, no, these guys are professionals. I'm going to listen to them.
That's really interesting too, because, our parents are well-meaning, but they do have their own lenses that they look through, and you say, why do you want to live so far away from me? And even it's funny that, why don't you buy brand new? And then why don't you buy a house? Because there's no growth in apartments. It's like, yet the very type of apartment they've suggested to you is the worst growth. It's, yeah. So I'm very glad that you found us, Anthony, that's for sure. So, Anthony, I want to ask you, how did you work out the price to pay? Because, it's easy to give up and just go, I'll pay whatever, whatever I can afford. But how did you go through our process, or did you just give up?
Two properties had recently sold in the same block 2 months ago. One of them was directly below it. And the other one was top floor, but at the back. And the one top floor at the back is sort of more like based it on, just because, top floor. And that sold for just shy of 1. And then I thought, that was 2 months ago, I've got to factor in the growth. So I was Googling the CoreLogic data, see how much, the average apartments have gone up. And then I also thought, it's at the front of the property. It's got a nice outlook over the street. It's got to be worth another 10, 15 grand. So I think that that Monday night, I was just sort of, constantly thinking, is that too much? I don't want to miss out. So I think I ended up adding like another 5-10 grand onto my offer, just to sort of seal the deal, learning from the previous one, where it had been like, I wouldn't have got it even with what I was going to be, even though I didn't have my contract reviewed. And, also you've got like, you're getting that noise from like your parents saying the property market's going to crash, don't buy now, sit it out, it'll go down, and then you have problems with your loan because the bank's.
And then there's someone on the radio, and there's someone in the newspaper, and there's all sorts of different opinions.
Yeah, the headlines are screaming, don't do it, or they're screaming, do it. I mean, at the end of the day, they're either one or the other. It's going to crash. It's just racing out of control. There doesn't seem to be ever a normal headline about property. And also what you experience immediately after you actually sign a contract is pretty normal when you go, oh, my God, did I pay too much? And then you sort of got to go and rework and go through your workings. They're going to go, did I? No, I did it right. I followed a process and I was logical, and I did look at recent sales, and I did index up. And I think, was that a conversation that you and I had, Anthony, about the indexing up?
It was, yeah. It was based on one of the previous properties where I said, I think I'm thinking that much, and you were saying you need to factor in the growth from how many months ago. And I actually thought, I'm going to use that logic because that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to that sort of calculation.
Excellent. I think
that's awesome.
Because we've got the free course. So we do have a free mini course for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't actually learned how to price a property. It's literally homebuyeracademy.com.au free course. And I reckon, Meighan, we probably need to run a pricing workshop where we actually
I think we do actually, because at the moment,
index.
Yeah, it's a vastly different. So the pricing course, the free pricing course is really valuable and helps you understand the basis of how properties are valued in a market perspective, not as a registered valuer, but it's one of the methodologies that's used. But in this current market, we're in November 2021, in this current market where prices are moving so steadily and so consistently, you actually need to factor in some indexing and some price growth from the most recent sales. So I think, Veronica, great idea. We'll pop that onto the books
our list
our list of courses that are becoming bigger and bigger.
The longer and longer list. Well, I have to say too that I first put that into our forum, the social wall. So people who do buy the course do get free membership at the moment. We were going to start putting together a mentoring program where you can actually pay to be a member. But at the moment, we haven't done that. But for those who are members of sort of our beta group, then, that's actually where I put that indexing in there and some links there so people can do that. But I think, we need to show how it's done. But look, well done.
It's on the list.
Yeah, well done on that pricing too.
Yeah, well done.
Now, I'm curious as well, if you're going to leave a parting word for our other listeners, the other students, the other people on the mountain that haven't actually reached the peak. And this is only the first peak, as you mentioned there. You're planning on to scale other mountains. You're only young. But for anyone else who's in that first home buyer journey, what's your one piece of advice that you would like to share with them to give them hope, to keep them on the journey?
I think you really just got to hang in there. Like, I think at some point, like, I was almost getting to, this is ridiculous, I'm not going to buy, maybe I should wait another year. And, lo and behold, this one pops up out of nowhere, and I thought, that's good. But I think, like, the big lesson for me was in a market like this, you've just got to act fast, like pay the extra fees to get that quick turnaround from your conveyancer. Don't, like, every second counts. So, as soon as you get that email, you need to respond to it straight away. Put everything else aside. For me, that's the biggest lesson.
So true in this market, isn't it?
That's daunting.
It's tough. It is really tough. And the market will cycle around again. But, delaying a decision to purchase at the moment because you're waiting for the market to stop, slow down, move backwards, it's just probably not the most prudent decision. So I think good advice from you. You've got to act quickly, and you have to have done your research to know what you're doing when you're ready to act quickly.
Yeah, and what's a good property to act quickly on? Not just at any old thing.
Anything.
Yeah, so it's a great lesson because you took 12 months, but when you were ready to, when you found the one, you acted quickly. And I think that rather than going, right, well, I should be buying in a month, I act quickly on anything. So I think it's a really great journey. I really do love what you've bought. I looked at it, as I said, I was like, oh, yes. Very proud. I think that you'll do absolutely fine with that over time. The only last thing I would say to you, just make sure you talk to your accountant if you're thinking you want to hold that for the long term and hold it when you upgrade at some future point. Always make sure you talk to your accountant about how you pay your mortgage and the structuring of that, so that to make sure that you give yourself plenty of options for the future. But I hope that you keep in touch with Anthony, because I really want to sort of know how it all works
into the long term.
We'll be around. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Anthony. Lovely to talk to you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
In this episode, we've covered a very small part of our 10-step online course for first home buyers. If you would like to learn more about the process and how to buy without making a mistake, then head over to our website, www.homebuyeracademy.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss an episode. And if you like what you've heard today, please give us an iTunes review. 5 stars would be wonderful. It will help others find us as well.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this really useful. And if you have, please share the love with others who you know are in the same boat. We'll be back next week with some more priceless stuff.